So just last quarter, my company sent over 17,000 LinkedIn DMs, and at the moment, last month, we made about $62,000 cash collected from LinkedIn outreach. So I'm going to give you all the scripts I'm using to generate 30 appointments per week, and honestly, it's probably a bit more than this at this point, but how to find more leads in your niche who have intent, who are already looking for your products or for your services, how to set up your profile to get the most amount of replies, and how to automate the outreach to get clients on autopilot. Okay, so let's start with leads. Let's start with finding intent-based leads, right? So what most people do is they'll just grab a random massive list on Apollo, right? And they'll just start spamming outreach, right? And they just hope for the best. Um, Basically, what you're doing with this method is you're spraying and you're praying and you're just hoping that someone out of the people that you're looking for is actually interested in what you do, right? But what you can actually do is you can pinpoint the prospects who are already interested in your services so you don't have to guess if they're going to be interested when you actually reach out to them, right? So let's say, for example, you do email marketing for e-commerce brands, right? So instead of just making a massive list of e-commerce brands and just saying, hey, we can help you with your ads, right? What you can do is you can actually look for the people who are not only already running ads, but people who are looking specifically at content on the internet who are looking to improve their ads, right? We can actually just get, for example, like we can get content creators to do all the work for us, right? So what we can do, right, is if you look at this post, for example, on LinkedIn that I said beforehand, right, is this guy helps e-commerce brands with email marketing, right? So all of his posts are going to be about email marketing for e-commerce brands. So when we look at the people who are liking these posts and commenting on these posts, most of them are going to be people who own e-commerce brands because this is the stuff that they're interested in, right? Not all of them are going to be like that. But what you can do is you can look through these people, these 222 people who are liking this kind of stuff, right? That are teaching e-commerce brands how to get better at email marketing, right? And you can actually reach out to these specific people, right? Because he's not going to be able to close all these people, right? But if you reach out to them, you're going to get some appointments booked and you're going to get some clients signed that didn't necessarily sign with this guy, right? So you're basically, this guy is compiling all the people who are interested in your service for you. You just have to reach out to them, right? So that's something that you can really do. There are some softwares as well that you can extract these likers, like the people who like these posts. And you can use things like Heyreach, EvaBoot, and Scrup. I've tried all these, they work well. And you can just automatically scrape all these people and then you can just go through them manually, or you can get a VA to do all these. This is probably what you do at scale, and just make sure that they're actually ecom brand owners, right? Because not all of them are going to be, but the ones who are, they're going to be extremely likely to positively reply because they're interested in this kind of stuff. They see the value in it, right? So you're not going to have to be worrying about if they're not going to find the value, right? What you can also do, is once you compile this list, you can also scrape their email and scrape their phone number using contact out. So for example, this Nick guy was one of the people who liked this, right? One of the people who liked this post. So what we can actually do is we can just go open this Chrome extension called contact out. If you just go search it up, it's free. What you can do is you can click view email and you'll be able to copy this guy's business email, right? Nick@structured.agency or whatever. And then you can also find his phone number and now you can cold call him, right? So now I hope don't all cold call this guy, right? This is how you actually find people's contact information if they're a fit. And then you can continue to do this for like all the people who liked or commented on that post who are actually a fit, right? So that's basically how you can find the leads, right? Now let's jump into how you can actually properly set up your profile to get the most amount of replies. And this is honestly one of the most important things when it comes to building out your LinkedIn. From my testing, I have found that having a properly optimized profile can literally double your connection acceptance rate and your positive reply rate. So this is very, very important. So there's 7 real things that we need to configure, but there are actually just 4 really important things, right? So number 1 is the profile picture, the bio, the cover photo, and the location. And there's a couple other things that are important as well that I'll talk about, right? But the only criteria for a profile picture, this is pretty simple, straightforward, is that it's actually just showing your face with pretty good quality imagery, right? So this, for example, pretty straightforward. It's just my face, right? Now the key to that bio is just being simple. So what a lot of people do is they'll just make this like elaborate pitch and try and make themselves like this super cool person in their bio. But really, what you want to do is you want to just either show some credibility or make yourself look familiar to them, without trying to sound like you're going to pitch them something, right? So, for example, my bio is just this. So it's pretty simple. It just shows some credibility. Obviously, the amount of clients that we have is a lot, and then I'm the founder of the company, right? So it's just kind of saying what I do, and then we do the same thing for all of our other profiles that we send outreach to, because it works, right? So basically I would just say my company and then talk about the fact, like, again, if you don't have 100 clients, for example, right? What you can just say is like something to do with what you do, right? And so showing that you're credible, right? So if you're, let's say you're a Facebook ads agency for contractors, right? Instead of just saying how many contractors you help, what you can do is you can say what you help with, right? So you can say helping contractors scale, right? And just be simple like that. It's not really as much credibility, more as just like showing them what you do. Another thing that works really well is I have a client who's targeting real estate investors, and what works really well is you can kind of make yourself feel like you can make yourself essentially like your niche. So they're going to connect with you because they think you like them, right? So what he puts in his bio is he puts founder at whatever his company name is, right? I'm obviously not going to say it. And then he puts real estate investor after, right? So it sounds like when the real estate investor is going to accept his connection request, it looks like he's a real estate investor. So they're like, oh, another person to collaborate with, right? And that also is true. He is a real estate investor as well, right? But he can do both at the same time. And by saying that he's a real estate investor, he's more likely to get people who are real estate investors to want to connect with him, right? So that's another thing you can do there. Um, so that's basically what you can do in the bio. Now, in terms of the cover photos, this is where most people go wrong. And what they'll do is they'll put some fancy shit here. And I could probably easily find an example of this, but I'm not going to, bro. But what a lot of people do is they'll have this like fancy cover photo that they'll make, like they'll get off Upwork or they'll make on Canva or something, and it's just like a big, massive pitch, right? Which is essentially just making people run away from them who aren't necessarily interested in buying from you right away, right? Like I wouldn't have 100 appointments in 100 days guaranteed on my banner because it's just gonna like piss people off because they probably like again they just have negative associations of people trying to pitch on their cover photo, right? So what you want to do is not have something fancy and just have something that is like just a normal human would have, right? You don't want this to be about yourself, or you don't want this to be about your offer, right? So there's a couple things that work really well here. So I just have my logo, which is pretty simple. For most of my accounts, I just have like a skyline of like the city where they are, which also works really well. So for example, there's a bunch of just like nature photos here that typically work well. Like if we have a person in New York or New Jersey, we're gonna put a thing of New Jersey in the background here, right? And that tends to work pretty well. So yeah, this works really well. Just don't make the mistake of having this big like fancy thing in the background. So the location of your profile is actually very, very important as well. So I've also tested this after sending hundreds of thousands of outreach at this point, and the data supports that if you actually message someone that is in the same location as you have a significantly higher likelihood of actually getting them to respond as well, right? Because it's another like familiarity thing. If they're like, oh, this guy's from the same city, of course I'm going to connect with them, right? That actually happens a lot, and I've sent multiple clients who jumped on a call because the profile that we reached out to them was in literally the same city as them, right? And it's just like this random city. So actually what we do is we have like I think like 15 LinkedIn accounts at this point, and they're all based in like different cities in the United States. Some are obviously not in the United States, like this one for example, right? Most of them are in the United States, based in like different places, right? And we have them in like individual cities so that when we reach out to them, we basically reach out to the people in those different cities, like in those major cities, from the same accounts that are already there. And what that does is it allows us to have an overall increase in reply rate across all of the different accounts, which like significantly increases our results, right? So that really works well. There's a couple other things that are important that I'm not going to go too in detail into with regards to the profile, but they are important, right? So number one is the about section. So with your founder account, you kind of just want to tell a little bit about yourself. You don't really have to, but this is what I do. So this is kind of like my accomplishments, what we've helped clients with, etc. Um, and then there's a slightly different one for the setter accounts, right? Which basically just looks like this. If you want, you can like pause and like steal this, right? But basically just this is more of a pitch. When someone is like scrolling all the way down to the about section, it's likely that they're already interested in what you're doing. So then we just want to kind of try and convert them, right? Then also the featured section is really important. So what you want to do here is you want to have some links, and you want them to link ideally to a few different things. You want them to be able to schedule a demo really easily, so you can have that as a link. Um, if you have a YouTube channel, which I do, obviously, you can link it to that. And you can link it to your case studies as well. This is what I do. You can also add like different like newsletters that you have if you have one, right? Or just different things that people can digest more information from you, right? Also, posting is really important. I wouldn't put too much energy into this off the bat. Just put like some simple things at the start. I actually, what I do is I just copy my email newsletter and I just drop it in here once a week. And these tend to perform decently. We get some likes on them and then we reach out. Also, what works really well, this is like a whole separate strategy. Um, but what you can do is you can make like lead magnets. So this one got 76 comments of like potential clients, right? And this same thing with this one. I'll just give you this as an example, right? But you can make these posts, right? That like I've booked this many appointments with LinkedIn. I give them my entire strategy for free, comment strategy, and then a bunch of people comment strategy, right? And then we reply to them. We send them the resource, which in this case is one of my videos, right? And then we send them our pitch, and then off to the races we go. We just book them in, right? So doing this also works really well because when you tell people to comment, it also gets shared with their audience as well. So you're basically, it's like this compounding effect that works really well, right? So that's what you can do there. And that's most of the information on the profile, right? So yeah, basically just recapping that last part. If you are in the same city, you will have the highest chance of them being interested. So the location of where your profile actually really matters, right? And one of the things that we help our clients with as well is actually building out this infrastructure and like where to find these accounts and how to actually set them up, right? So that we can cover as much surface area as possible and so that we can get as many bookings as possible without leaving any money on the table, right? So one of our clients, I'll just tell you the story, right? This is actually relevant, right? He's from Germany. His name's Sabir. He's a beast. He's a legend if you're watching this, Sabir. And with our help, right, we helped him set up like 10 or so LinkedIn accounts and gave him all the SOPs, all the automations, all the scripts, all the strategies, like literally everything to be able to actually get like 60 meetings a month, which is where he was at right now. And he was at around like 10 before working with us. And he went from getting 10 appointments a month to 70 appointments a month, right, in 2 months, and signed at this point he signed like two $20,000 contracts within like 2 months, right? Which was pretty cool, right? So basically everything we kind of do is tailored in terms of the scripts. This is just like I'm going to give you the structure here. Obviously, the most important thing is going to be tailoring it to your niche, is going to be making sure that you're using the right offer in your scripts. And so that's individual to you specifically. Because if you're just saying the same thing as everyone else, right, obviously you're going to get the same results, right? So we basically, with our clients, right, we help them actually tailor this so they get the most replies and so they can stand out. But I'll give you the actual structure here. If you are interested at all in getting help from me specifically, there's a link in the description for that you can check out. If not, here's kind of the general overview on how the scripting structure works, right? So there's essentially 3 steps, or there's 2 steps, right? There's kind of 3, but the first 2 are the most important ones, right? So first step is the initiation message. So the goal for this initial message is to get the prospect interested in our offer, not to actually offer them, not to try and sell them yet, right? What a lot of people do is they will just like put this like massive pitch inside of the LinkedIn DMs and then no one will read it, right? Because no one has essentially agreed to actually have a conversation with you, right? So what we want to first do is we want to get that agreement so that we can actually pitch them so they can actually like listen to what we have to say, right? So here's an example, right? So, hey, Nam, if I could send you some strategies that got me 150 appointments last month, would you be open to hearing more? Right? Very easy to say yes, very short, very simple, right? Now, this works even better as a voice note, right? So you can send this as an in-mail, for example. You can send this as a connection message. But what I found that really works the best is if you send this as a voice note, because again, it shows the other prospect that you're actually putting effort into that. And one of the laws of like outbound and copywriting, right, is that you want to show perceived effort, right? And it doesn't, and again, that's the point, is perceived effort, right? So you can have like a setter do the voice notes for you. You can have someone do the voice notes for you, right? But it's really important that you actually put the personalization into it because again, this is what's going to allow you to separate yourself from every single other person, right? So you can do this at scale by just automating it, or again, even better, you can just do this as a voice note, right? Once they say yes to this, right, and obviously you're gonna tailor this to your offer, right? But once they say yes to this, you're gonna send them the pitch message. So now, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to get the prospect to book a call, right? We're not trying to give them some value. We're not trying to give them a lead magnet. We do that after they book the call. But right now, we just want to get them the easiest route to book the call, right? So what we're doing here is we can do this with a Loom video or we can do this with text. I found it to work with both, so you can test both for your niche. But this is essentially what we cover in the Loom video, right? So we go over, hey, basically saying who you are. Hey, my name's Josh, and then you go straight into the offer. So I'm super confident that I can help you get 120 appointments in 120 days, or we don't get paid, right? And that's our offer. And then we go over our case studies, right? So we already helped this person generate this amount of revenue in this amount of time, this person, this revenue this time, and you go over like 3 or 4 or 5 just to show that you know what you're doing. You don't want it to be too long. And then you want to do a very, very, very vague explanation of how your services work and how your strategies work, right? So I wouldn't go in detail about specifically what I help my clients with, but what I would do is I would show them the result of what they're going to get after they implement this unique mechanism, right? So how I would say this is like, so what we do is we help our clients install automated AI outbound appointment booking systems to be able to get upwards of 20 to 30 appointments every single week on complete autopilot to help them scale to 50 to 100K per month, right? And that's again, that's what I would pitch, right? It's not explaining how we actually do that. It's just explaining what we do and kind of the unique mechanism behind that, which is the AI outbound appointment stuff, right? Then what you want to do is you want, and this is really important, is you want to position the call as a call to help build a strategy for them, right? So what you'll find is a lot of people, they'll ask, well, how does it work, right? So what you want to basically do is you want to deflect this question, because if you tell them how it works, then they're going to be not interested because they've probably already heard it or tried it before, right? So what you want to do is you want to be like, that's a great question. And we have a lot of different strategies, but obviously they depend on the client that we work with, right? So what we're actually going to do on the call is we're going to build a custom strategy for you. And again, worst case scenario, we'll just give that to you for free. And you can just implement it yourself, right? Best case scenario, we'll help you do it, right? So you want to position this call, right? So you want to explain how the strategies work, we'll help you do this, blah, 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 right? So if you click the button at the top of this video, you can schedule a call with me personally, and I'll help build an entire strategy for your agency completely for free. And then if you want to work with us at the end, that's fine. If you want to just do it yourself, that's also fine, right? And then you just ask them to book the call, and that's pretty simple, right? Now, this is the most important part: is the outreach automation, right? Now, the best automation software that I found is called Heyreach, which basically does a few things. Number one, it lets you combine. I'm going to show you how this works in a second as well, right? But it allows you to combine all of the actual LinkedIn accounts you have with one single inbox, so you can manage them all from one place without taking a bunch of time going between different LinkedIn accounts. And it also fully automates the initial touch point, right? So what you can do inside of here, that's not what I wanted to do. Is you can go to your LinkedIn accounts, for example, and you can see we have all these different LinkedIn accounts. I think we have like 11 connected to here, or 10 or something like that. And then what you want to do here, right, is there's a couple things. So first of all, you're going to need to add your leads here. So what you can do is you can add, and you can put a Sales Navigator search inside of here, which is also like really powerful if you want to just use Sales Navigator. This also allows you to get the people who reacted to the LinkedIn post, which is what I was talking about before. If you want, you can use a different software to scrape these LinkedIn reactors, filter them out, and then import them as a CSV like this. And you can basically do a ton of different things here in terms of importing these leads, right? Now, once they're actually imported, what you want to then do, right, is you're going to go into campaigns and you're going to need to create a campaign. So I'm going to show you an example. So this is going to be called test campaign, right? So we'll make this, and you want to set one of these up for each individual account, because again, you want to be able to do that single location targeting, right? So you can just call this whatever, and then let's just say we're adding this list here, and there's a few different options here. Let's just say we want to reach out to these leads. This is exclude list, which we don't actually care about. If you want, you can add a do not contact list here, which I actually probably should do. I haven't done that yet. But you can add a list here, right? Now, what you can do is you can exclude leads contacted from another Heyreach campaign, which is probably a good idea. So you don't like cross reach out to multiple leads. You can do this, and it does work. Like you will still get people to reply to you, but it's not ideal, right? And then same thing with this, and same thing with this, right? So then what you do now is you go to continue, right? You can select the accounts that you want to use. So you can select multiple. I'm just going to select this one just because it's a test. And then we want to continue, right? Obviously, you wouldn't normally set up multiple campaigns for one sender, but we are going to in this case. Then what you want to do, right, is you want to see if they basically have a open profile or not. So you want to basically find out. So you can add your in-mail message here, right? So let's say we're using this one, right? So we'll add our initial message here, right? And we'll obviously replace this name for the first name here. So now we can have a personalized first name. We can also add different types of variables here if we want to, but we're just going to leave it as this. And then the fallback message, if it can't find the first name, which it always can, we can just add this, right? Then we're going to click save. And then we want to basically make sure they have an open profile, right? So this is basically what we would do here is we would import the people who do have an open profile into this campaign. Again, there's a lot of different ways that we can do that, which is something that we help our clients with, right? And then this basically is going to send all our emails on autopilot. Now, if we wanted to create a campaign for connections, right, we could basically do just send a message, right? So we can do if connection, um, send message, and that way we can just message our people who are connected with, or we could just do send connection request, and then we could do again we could just add our message here if we wanted to, or we could just leave this blank, which is what I do, and then just manually reach out to them with a voice note, using setters to basically do it that way. Because again, that personalization really helps. And then obviously we have our uni box with literally all of the different people who we're talking with, that we can all manage from one place, which is really helpful. I have my setter manage this, and you can see obviously we get like we've had like 20 replies in the last like hour, right? So all this works really well. You can also connect this with things like Clay, which we're testing out right now. You can connect it with Slack, so you can make like a message when someone replies, which is really good. And there's a ton of stuff you can do inside of the software, which works really well, right? So if you want to use this software, I have a link in the description also for a 14-day free trial. And it also supports me. It is an affiliate link, whatever, right? If you want my help getting help setting all this shit up, because obviously there's a lot of nuances, and you probably don't want to leave money on the table. Feel free to book a time with me. Again, it's literally just to show you if this would work for you and how the strategy would play out for your business. But if you don't care, that's fine. I'll see you in the next one.